I can see how this is your place. And Baxter's smile widened, imagine, as his hand came to rest on the back of one of his armchairs.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was worth the time and energy to decorate it then.
You're too kind.
Now, Callie, I must thank you for volunteering your services in this exceedingly ill thought out and wholly inconvenient task. Not many would. I do believe we should get started before it gets any later. He ran on the couch, slipping off his jacket before tossing it with reckless abandon over his blue armchair. He gently dusted the edges of his sleeves, inspected them for non-existent dust. I'll hang that up correctly later. Jacketless Baxter, here we go, bitches. Talk about a great view. He leveled a look at you when an eyebrow raised. You got him nervous. As much as I appreciate the encouragement, there are other matters that need your keen attention. I solemnly swear I'll do my best. It won't be easy. Excellent.
Very well.
Let's go over what we will need to do in a semi-flexible list of steps. He passed you on the way to the small kitchen unit, gesturing every so often to where he placed things as he reviewed. First, we'll need to preheat the oven, then prepare the batter in the pan and bake it. After that, we'll have to make a stencil, dye the frosting, take the cake out and let it cool, then cut the cake to the approximate shape of using with a controller using a stencil. He took out a cursory glance at the double frosting that you'd been allotted before ultimately picking it up and checking the bottom of it for its expiration date. Finally, we'll apply a base coat of frosting, add detailing, and pack it up so that it's ready to simply be taken to the venue in the morning. Baxter returned the frosting to the counter where he'd taken it from.
Well,
that doesn't sound possible. The grimace that crossed his features betrayed his disbelief. It might not have been impossible, but that didn't mean it wouldn't be difficult. Exchanging the frosting tin for the cake mix, he scanned the directions on the back before reaching to the oven style screen to set the temperature. 350 degrees. The appliance beeped with the recognition, and its interior lights flickered on in the warning. Now it begins. Tugging his nose beneath the box top, Baxter worked to opening it. The world wasn't going to give him a single break. However, it refused to come back cleanly. Only the paper top came off, while the rest of the flap remained glued down. Baxter had to tediously tear out the cardboard. The scrapes were abandoned on the tabletop little by little, while he searched for a bowl and other utensils.
to be honest,
You may be surprised to hear, Callie. I am quite a slow cook these days. I've had a short life's worth of delicious and interesting meals. There is something quite satisfying about making it myself, as opposed to going to a restaurant. He hummed as he pressed his hands into the box, the top of it eventually splitting open to unveil its contents to him. Baxter took out the pouch of mix and examined what remained of the box once more. I unfortunately don't have any of those offerings for you today. This is just the first to say that, and this is just to say that the first and last I've baked a dessert or decorated something was with you for Miranda's birthday. He chuckled as he used scissors to get the plastic baggie to open, before he emptied its dusty contents into a bowl he scrunched up. I do hope those savory skills are transferable. It should be interesting either way. He'd never make you think again. That night had been semi-disastrous. So you weren't particularly surprised that he never repeated it. Except He still suggested his confectionery services today. Honestly, it seemed like him to do that. Honestly, it seemed like him to do something like that. Baxter was always the type to offer to do whatever was needed of him, even if it was something he wasn't prepared for. It was funny how it was always the Eckert siblings who managed to get in mixing batter.
So?
What about you? What about me? Have you done much cake decorating in recent years? I've gotten plenty of chances to decorate. I'm a lot better.
Excellent.
Excellent. And the decor will make up for the box cake taste. Don't sweat the details too hard. We'll make what we make. It was as simple as that. Head towards the sink to wash your hands. Without further discussion, and with a massive list of things to still be done, you and Baxter set up work preparing the cake. It went without a hitch, shockingly. It was only oil, water, and an egg into pre-mixed fried ingredients, but the track record of things going wrong was impressive. Once that was combined, you lined the pan with parchment paper, and Baxter poured in the batter. By the time you rinsed the bowl, the oven beat, and Baxter, after checking to make sure the temperature was right at least twice, set the pan into the oven. He set a timer for half an hour, in accordance to the directions.
I can do that.
It might take a bit longer than that. I'll keep on. The last thing we need is a pound cake. Right. Telling. All that was left to do was wait. Baxter checked his phone for messages as he leaned against the counter. Aha! A grin spread across his features, and his fingers flew across the screen to send off a quick text. Peering over his shoulder, he managed to sneak in. He got a few pictures of Scott's game controller. It thankfully had an uncomplicated design. Bright red with a handful of black and white buttons and joysticks. The shape of it looked like it would be pretty easy to replicate. It was wide and bulky. A sheet cake could be carved into a general shape, for sure. For this, I'll prepare a stencil. Keep an eye on the cake, would you? It's literally still batter. It's batter in a hot oven. It hasn't started doing anything yet. Half serious and half joking about the cake, he departed the kitchen. You're half-blooded when he said us. Even though you knew it was purely innocuous, this project was between the two of you. So us was the obligation from the well-meaning Baxter, who gave credit where credit was due. As commanded, you brought your nose up to the warm oven and peered inside. As the cake was hidden between a tinted window, you couldn't exactly register how it was doing. You couldn't smell anything either. That you take. No sun meant no smoke. Overall, that sure was cake in a pan. It was fine. Maybe. Hopefully. Apologies to have been kept you waiting. Baxter returned with a plain sheet of print, the paper, and pencil. I'm afraid I don't have a printer, so we'll have to freehand it. That prompted the question as to why he had the printer paper in his house then. He didn't give the question room to rise. Hopefully, unlike your cake, Baxter set his supplies down and leaned over his phone, brows furrowed, with constant effort. The tip of his pencil had yet to meet the page. Baxter hesitated as he drew his screen closer to double-check the shade before finally committing graphite to white. He slowly drew the lower curve of the controller, stopping every so often, leaving dark lines at some points. When he closed off the complete shape, it was completely lopsided. The first half looked quite good. The other half, however, was short and narrowed. He brought it again. He brought it all in too soon.
Well,
I wasn't expecting it to be perfect on my first try. He chuckled, running his fingers through his hair. Baxter started erasing his failure before saying loudly. Given up, Baxter simply returned the page over and to the other side. He switched the controller again, to no more success than the last. He set the pencil down. There was no attempt to erase anything. Baxter was already tying to the other half of the apartment. I'll get another sheet, or rather, the entire stack would be fast. He stood up, digits thrust against the nape of his neck. Baxter's eyes met yours. His tense smile faltered a bit, as the bright brown of his irises flicked straight to the ground. You don't need to worry. I'm not quite as sensitive as I used to be about mistakes. I'll survive this, pride as wounded as it may be from all these trials and tribulations. This time was joking and light, but you couldn't help finding it unfunny. The Baxter you knew, the Baxter you'd known, agonized over missteps, far more than the average person. In the last few days you'd spent with him, you'd seen he'd actually grown as a person in some way. I can get you a pencil and even bring more paper to share, if you'd like to give it a try as well. Why not? It sounded like fun. And we did draw in our childhood, I'm pretty sure. We were like an artist. Yeah, if you could, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly.
Certainly. Back to North, disappearing back to whence he came. Moments later, he returned through the hall with an inch thick stack of paper, as he said he would. And with a second pencil in tow, too. Resuming his Herculean task, Baxter took another sheet of paper off the top and thought the third time would be a charm. After taking another glance at the reference photo, you sketch out a general shape of a controller. Baxter peeked over your shoulder, outright dropping his pencil once he'd realized that was better than he was doing, even before it was done. Once you did finish, Baxter took it gratefully in hand.
You're good.
Thank you, Callie. You saved me the burden of buying more paper this late in the evening. The night before a wedding I'm supposed to be the buyer for. He laughed, his tone softened as he said your name. It was a stencil. You hadn't taken the time for any particular details. Still, Baxter seemed so relieved. Luckily, that was less painful than I had assumed. He didn't miss the marked sarcasm that snuck into his words, despite his better efforts. We can repair the colors. Pursuing the counter for what remained of the supplies, he picked up the box of food coloring. It seemed used before, judging by the inky smears left behind on Baxter's fingertips, as he gathered the few balls he needed. As he gathered the few of the balls he needed, every color except the yellow. As he worked through them, he pried the little tube of the frosting.
All right.
Nearly all of that will be red. Let's save some of the white, off-white. I suppose cream cheese can only look so pale, and a little extra for the black parts. I do believe mixing blue, green, and red will produce black. After his text the photos, after closing the text of photos, he searched online for how to make black frosting. Yes, that appears to be the way. Adding cocoa powder will make an even richer black. Oh, clever. I don't have any. He shot a glance in your direction, lips pressed into a thin smile. As the wise man once said, of course you don't have baking supplies. 2 little bowls was filled with several messy spoonfuls of frosting. The rest was plopped into a large salad bowl, which Baxter couldn't help noticing as ironic. And dye was added, drop by drop, filling up the shades as you went. The red ball was squeezed nearly empty to reach a true red that matched the controller. Your white frosting was the only one that remained unblemished. What precious little red remained was reserved for the black, which ended up as a dismissal gray. A harsh thing to think about a color that was, wow, what's somber by nature. And still, Baxter didn't want to push the dye any further, at the risk of ruining its taste or consistency.
It's...
A few people are likely to notice that black is more of a... His words showed nothing. His eyes half lit as he stared at the frosting with newfound recognition. Right? Hmm? His face turned to you with a thought of unspoken emotion. Baxter unthinkingly reached to swipe a bit of leftover frosting, stuck to his fingers, stuffing himself before he did. Oh, right. This will work fine for our purposes. He went to withdraw a saran wrap from one of the kitchen drawers, and proceeded to hastily wrap up the three balls before finally putting them away in his fridge. With the frosting and scent taken care of, the two of you busied yourselves with cleaning the counter and tossing the refuse, pieces of cardboard, and hollowed out frosting out of their control outlines. Baxter even got a chance to probably hang his jacket. The time ran out as you continued to manage yours. You moved down to the can out of the stencil, using the same sisters Baxter had set aside from his adventures in opening the cake box. Baxter set aside from his adventures in opening the cake mix box. Baxter handled the cake. A toothpick test was done, and came out clean. It was time for your treat to chill inside the freezer, until it was set enough to be decorated. Outside of that, everything that needed or to be done had more or less been done. It was odd how familiar the empty space between a finished cake and an almost finished one felt. Then again, this had happened before, hadn't it? Without lingering in the quiet thought for long, Baxter had a plan for what to do next, of sorts. At the moment, pressing against the fridge with his body almost perfectly parallel to it, and staying that way. Before he could ask, he sighed deeply, as the air he had stored in his body was being sucked out of him by the devious appliance he had become attached to. I cannot believe I'm doing this again. Gonna get another irresponsible drink, you asked openly? I wish I had a drink, but as you say, that'd be unprofessional. Baxter's eyes closed as he languished there in relative silence. The veneer of him being put together. The veneer of him being a put together wedding planner had been chipping since before you walked through his front door. It was entirely up since then. Who he actually was had been left exposed. You wanted to talk to him, the Baxter before you. So, what's up? Why are we here? I know why technically, but really, why did you decide to do all of this? It's pretty funny, you know. You're bending over backwards, making their wedding as perfect as possible, after being so sure it wouldn't last. I will never live that down. I'm sure. Yes. Well, the irony isn't lost on me. This isn't how my work typically goes, I hope you realize. Even I can admit I wouldn't do this for every client. And somehow that makes this worse. It's painfully obvious that I have some personal investment to merit this. He gestured to the kitchen, then to you.
I swear.
More than I intended it to be. More than I ought to have. His arm relaxed, falling uselessly to his side. But finally, Baxter pried himself off the appliance. Though, he didn't remove himself from it for long. Instead, his black tousled hair as he looked around, though the back of his head was up against it. His gaze shifted to the ceiling, suddenly fascinated by the next floor up. I wouldn't have done this if you weren't here. Baxter closed his eyes, sighing deeply as he continued. Even though Miranda was the kind sister, he said kind in the way that made Jude sound clerical, that detached him from knowing him, Miranda, or Scott as actual people. I wouldn't have offered. It'd be overreaching to do as much as I have. I've gone beyond the line of pure professionalism more than once already. The cake is the icing on top. Why do you do it then? If you're so worried. What do I have to do with this? And what do I have to do with it? The question made him stop in his tracks. His confession came. uncharacteristically, without much thought of how it would be received. Now he needed to explain himself. Oh well, naturally, it's against my bad judgment to make anyone uncomfortable.
Of course.
Of course, in such a tight spot, Jude wouldn't have questioned any help he was offered. But what would Miranda have thought? And Harry as well? If some strange man I knew long ago was getting that personally involved in my situation. I wouldn't have crossed that line, no matter how much sympathy I have had for Jude. I wouldn't have crossed that line, no matter how much sympathy I had for Jude's position. Miranda and Harry had been your friends for years. He was certain Baxter was wrong about his assumption. Whether or not Baxter had prior experience with those two, there was no way they would judge him for fully caring about someone, especially when it was for Jude and Scott. Baxter wasn't finished, however, and you weren't going to interrupt. So, where did my confidence come from? Very simply, I thought you would understand that I had good intentions, that the odd way that I had good intentions, that the odd lengths I went to were merely how I am, and that it was okay to let me be involved. And if you did understand, everyone else would as well. Oh. His answer fell like a rock into still water. He seemed smaller, younger now, like he was still 19.
Truthfully.
As soon as it comes to you, it appears my reason goes out the window, along with much of my dignity. It's not derivatively, and in nowhere to look. The towels above had lost their appeal. That's how it is.